In this podcast, we have chosen to analyze The Shawshank Redemption. The Shawshank Redemption is a film based on the novel Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption by Stephen King from 1994. The movie is about a banker named Andy Dufresne who was wrongly convicted of murdering his wife and her lover. He finds himself spending 20 years in prison, where he makes time go by with covering up for the warden's money laundering business, expanding the library, and playing chess with his good friend Red. But after 20 years, Andy gets enough and escapes prison through a hole he dug in the wall with a small, simple rock hammer.
The Shawshank Redemption doesn't follow the typical narration style. The movie consists of 4 acts and not 3, and it's also longer than the typical movie. Act 1 is when Andy is sentenced to life for killing his wife and her lover and the beginning of his prison life. Act 2 is when Andy finds his place in prison and makes friends. He starts helping the guard on financial matters and at the same time he builds the library. Act 3 is when he decides to escape from prison and bust the warden for his money laundering business. Act 4, the last act, is when Red is paroled and finds his way to Andy. The first plot point is when Andy is sentenced to life at the court. The second plot point in the movie finds place before the point of no return. This is when Tommy tells him and Red that he knows who really killed Andy's wife and her lover. Point of no return is after his time in solitary, when Tommy is killed and Andy isn't in his cell in the morning for rolls up. Climax would be the flashback when Andy crawls out of the pipes and is standing in the rain as a free man.
Now we'll go on to talk about the film styles. The movie uses shallow focus, focus change, and deep focus to give the viewer an overview of a scene, but also to emphasize important details. The shallow focus is used when Andy and Red are reading the letter from Brooks. They also use the focus change in the scene. They likewise use many different kinds of camera angles in the movie. Some scenes are from above, where it gives an overlook and makes the character look small, like when Tommy is killed, and some scenes are filmed from low-angle shots, where the people seem bigger and more powerful, like when we see the warden. In the movie, the editing is quite unnoticeable. They use continuity editing, which creates a more natural flow to the movie. The scene often ends naturally, for example, when a cell door closes and it becomes dark. In the very beginning of the movie, we cut between Andy sitting in his car with a gun and the courtroom where he's being accused of the crime. It could be argued that this type of cutting is parallel cutting, where 2 or more scenes unfold within a single film frame. But because the 2 scenes do not go on at the same time, it is more likely to be characterized as flashbacks. The movie is not an action movie, whereto the use of slow and fast motion is non-existing. The same goes for the use of color in the movie. It is not an action movie, therefore the colors are very low-key and normal. The majority of the film is dominated by the color blue and gray. The movie therefore has a relatively cold color palette, but there are a few exceptions. For example, in the scene on the rooftop where they sit and drink beer, the color palette is relatively warm. The sun is shining on them. The warm colors have positive connotations and occurs likewise when the situation is positive. Sound in the movie is mostly diegetic sound, like the sound of a beating, the sound of Red playing harmonica, or the sound of the Italian woman singing over the speakers. The non-diegetic sound in the movie is very sorrowful and sad throughout most of the movie, but towards the end, the non-diegetic sound is more uplifting. It predicts a better future and hope for Andy and Red. The lack of non-diegetic sound is symbolic in the sense that we mostly hear what the inmates also hear, which makes it easier for us to relate to the characters. Red is a voiceover throughout the whole movie as he is telling the story. He guides us through the story and helps the viewer make sense of it.
And Dufresne is a middle-aged banker. He is a tall, well-educated, skinny, ordinary man that you wouldn't think of as a criminal. He is not a very expressive man and shows little emotion even when he is sentenced to prison and he keeps most of his emotions hidden. Red says, I can see why some of the boys took him for a snobby. He has a he has a quiet way about him, a walk and a talk that just wasn't normal around here. He strolled like a man in a park without a care or a worry in the world, like he had an invisible coat that would shield him from his place. This shows us that he doesn't fit into prison, but also that he doesn't show emotions. Even though Andy ends up spending nearly 20 years in prison, he never loses hope. Hope is what gets him through the tough times. As he writes to Red in the end of the movie, remember Red, hope is a good thing, maybe the best of things, and no good things ever die. Andy is also very determined. This shows when he starts sending a letter every week to get new books for the library, and he doesn't stop before he gets it. Andy develops a lot throughout the movie. First of all, we see this when he says, No thanks, I gave up drinking. This shows that he has learned and developed since the night of his wife's murder, where he was drinking. Later in the movie, he also says, I was an honest man. On the outside, I had to come to prison to become a crook. He refers to the dirty work that he is doing for the warden of the prison. He doesn't become a bad man, but he realizes that life isn't always fair and takes it into his own hands to make a change. The movie ends happily with the two good friends being united outside of prison with a new life ahead of them. Any crime or sin that they might have committed have been paid off. The use of symbols. Rita Hayworth, the woman on the poster that is in Andy's cell, symbolizes hope and something from the outside of the prison. She helps keep Andy linked to the outside world. When Andy gets out of the tunnels, he stands in water with rain dripping down on him, which symbolizes a baptism. The themes in the movie are is hope, and that even in the most hopeless situations, you can find hope. You can you can always find self-worth, and there is always hope even if you don't have anything else. This is also the message of the movie.